So, Jared, are you going to do the introduction?
You can do it. It says we're live, so I guess we're
We are
live.
live.
I
Oh,
guess we're
awesome.
live.
All right. Well, welcome. And tonight is myself, Jay. We have Eric with us tonight, and Jared. For our members, Jason's currently under the weather, so he bowed out tonight. I'm sure we'll get him back again next week. And then Colin was tied up, so you get the three of us tonight, and we're gonna cover the latest topics. And let's just get started. Um, why don't we get started with the stable coin, and I'll pull up the article and we'll get you started talking, Eric. Let's see.
All right.
Here we go. So let's talk.
All right. So, you might have noticed that Blockstream was in the news over in Japan because this is really interesting. They've teamed up with Digital Garage to to launch this year-long pilot program that's been approved by the FSA, the Japanese version of SEC, to launch stablecoins, to test them out for a year and see how everything works, and then hopefully officially get the approval from the FSA for the exchanges or whatever entities to launch their own stablecoin in Japan. So big news, you know, on the in Japan and for Blockstream and Digital Garage.
So,
So so Eric, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So Eric, what's your thoughts on like our SEC looking at that? Do you think is the SEC going to look at Japan and take note and follow suit?
I thought about that because we have another story coming later in the cast about something similar going on over in the UK. All these regulatory agencies. I wondered if they're looking at one another, seeing what works over there, but that's not the case. It's like each country, South Korea, Japan, UK, US, everybody's doing their own thing pretty much, um, which I found interesting. I thought, maybe they would each take a look at what's going on in one another's country, but I guess because of, different laws and regulations, all of them are running their own shows. So
Hmm. Well,
that's a long way to say no. I don't think so.
oh, that's disappointing. And the other question I had, because just last week we were talking about a stable coin that simply did not have enough liquidity to stay pegged to the dollar. So coin stable coin holders were basically at 70% of the dollar. Is there have you found any context that speaks to how Japan's going to be able to keep enough liquidity to keep
well,
the
Jay,
coin paid?
Jay, that wasn't a typical stablecoin. That was actually BitUSD, which is a different animal entirely. Um,
Ah,
that was actually built into the contract itself, and what happened was the price collapsed so much that they went into global settlement, and so you can't get the peg is gone because it's not able to be maintained. You
ah.
can't generate more BitUSD. From what I understand, that's the first time that's happened on the network. But I thought that was interesting just because I still have a bunch of bit shares, and so I still follow that a little bit. Um,
So
no,
near,
nobody else
near and
cares, dude.
Jared's heart,
No,
right?
nobody else cares about the dollar value of a bit USD right now,
I think
except
that was the
J
voice
Rod himself.
of depressed authority. I know what I'm talking about because I'm losing money.
But yeah, no, I mean, I guess the whole stablecoin thing's it still kind of blows my mind. It's like I get the need for it, but at the same time, there's a disconnect there. It's like
Yeah, totally.
you're right. It's like we shouldn't need stable coins, but like because we still live in this world where we need that type of thought, especially when you're trying to value something. Like it's very hard to value something in Bitcoin if Bitcoin's constantly going up and down. So it's almost like we're trained to think a certain way and to demand a gold reserve standard or whatever that stable thing might be. Um,
Yeah, I think they're like training wheels, until we finally reach the goal of adoption, that people have to have this price, peg, and so their investments are safe and whatnot
Yeah.
until we finally get those training wheels off and
Well,
they
it's
won't need.
I don't think it's training. I think it's the issue of like it's the apples to oranges. Like how many cows is my car worth? You know what I mean? Like so, how much Bitcoin is my house worth? Or
Well, yeah.
right. And so like it fucks your brain up trying to constantly evaluate values for things that are all fluctuating at the same time wildly. But it does make the case when you say price discovery, you think about what is the value of a Bitcoin? Well, it's whatever the market's willing to pay for it. Hopefully, eventually, the world will agree that it's worth a certain value, and that the sentiment doesn't change a bunch, right? Eventually, once price discovery has gone through several waves, we should see a stabilizing of that price. It's so new. But again, when I say price, what am I talking about? It's price in dollars. Right. Who cares, right? I care because I'm still spending dollars, not spending Bitcoin. And so for me, it just warps my brain that we obsess over price because we're still entrenched in this fiat banking system that this is supposed to get us out of. But now we're seeing the rise of stable coins. Hey, let's peg a crypto to this fiat currency or this fiat currency. It's just like,
yes, it's like
drives me nuts.
Stablecoins are the new ICO, are the new ICOs. It's like everybody's trying to launch a stable coin.
Sure. Or when I saw stablecoin trading, I was like, what? Like let's trade trade this stablecoin against this stablecoin. Like,
yeah,
what is going on? But I mean, whatever.
Well, do you when you speak to adoption though, do you think we're talking about an adoption by the mind to accept that prices and things should always fluctuate in value, or are we talking about an adoption of essentially an adoption of a new currency, right, and the loss of and the removal of fiat currency, right? and cryptocurrency will all be stabilized in order for it to function as we expect it to function today. You know what? And that was really a messed up question. I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around the idea of, right now money is essentially managed, right? And it's managed for multiple reasons, but one of those being, to maintain some sort of steadiness of the ship, right? So, is cryptocurrency essentially going to self-regulate sometime in the future, with when it finds its price, without the need for external manipulation? Is that?
That's the hope, I think, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, the hope is that it stabilizes.
And so that's why I said I think stablecoins are kind of training wheels until we reach that point.
Well, would you say when you look at something like gold, right? Gold, and I know we can say gold is very manipulated, but gold is not necessarily a stable price. It's, there's a chart that shows that it's increased over the years, and I guess we could say.
Hold on, guys. I think I'm gonna messed up the audio. No, I screwed up because the guy was saying that you guys couldn't be heard, and I'm like, okay, let me fix that. But I got multiple back feeds now. Yeah. I don't know. Hold on one sec. Let's let the live stream catch up. I should have just left it alone. Jared is the voice, yeah. So hold on. Of course, I screwed this up. All right. Just stop the stream and restart it. It should be back live now, so we're good. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. I was trying to fix things in the background. I should have just left it alone. Might be a little bit low. You guys can just turn your volume up, I guess. I don't know.
All right.
Technical difficulties.
Look, and all you missed was me beating this horse over and over again, a bunch of different ways. So Are we ready to
Yeah.
move on?
Yeah, I'm not an economist, so
Okay.
what can I say?
Okay. All right. Well, look, but you pick great articles and great topics. So we're gonna keep you running. All right, Eric. Let's talk about security tokens.
Put me on the spot. All right. Yeah, so this is
I don't have a
interesting.
voice. We're gonna put you on the spot.
This one was interesting. Again, just came out today. The UK's Financial Conduct Authority, which I guess is our equivalent to the SEC, um, they declined to. Where was it? Sorry, I don't have the article in front of me. Um,
Do I have it big enough on my screen?
Yeah, I mean it seemed in pretty good.
Okay.
Okay, where were we? So they declined to, I guess, regulate security tokens. They kicked it down to another group. Hang on a second. I still. Why don't you guys go ahead and
All right.
talk
Look,
while I
look.
pull
When you
that
look at that,
article up?
I'm just gonna bring up crazy shit, right? So as we take this thing, so this came across my radar. This strip club accepts every cryptocurrency on Bittrex. Look, I'm gonna go back to to the early 2000s, right? It was the porn industry that led, to the opening of the internet and live streams and all that. And hey, this has to be progress, right? It has to be progress. And this is Legends Room in Las Vegas. So if you're ever out in Vegas, you can go to Legends and you can. Although I can't imagine a stripper going, yeah, thanks for the.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, how does it even work? Like, I mean, every crypto. So, like, I mean, do they? Like, well, what's the technical way to do this? Do you?
Well, first of all, they've got their own token, right? If you look, like I said, they've got.
Okay, they got their own token.
Yeah, they've got their own.
Okay,
own
great.
token.
But I mean, but they said they accept all the other ones, right? So, like,
Right.
how? Like, how? I mean, do they have a little slot? Like, do you get an RFID, or do you throw them pieces of paper with addresses on it? Like, how does that work?
Right.
Like, like they're covered in QR codes. Like,
Sure.
how do we do this?
Look, man. Again, I can't imagine it because I'm pretty sure they'd much rather see 20s.
I mean,
so it must have something to, it said all the cryptos listed on Bittrex. So, but yeah, that still creates a problem on how you tip.
right. What's the mechanism?
Company on Bittrex.
Like, they got little terminals up there, and you're like, oh, I like honey. I'm gonna give her 400 Tron. Shake that ass. Like, I don't know, man. I think it sounds like a publicity stunt.
That sounded really natural coming out of your voice. I'm just, I'm not saying anything.
Hey,
that just flowed. But hey, look, this is for laughs. So, Eric, you ready to go back and look at digital? Let's see, we were just on UK financing.
UK finance. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you sure we don't want to talk about strip clubs? It's a little more exciting. Okay, so I found this story through Marcos Santori on Twitter. Here's where I get most of my news.
You want me to start with? There we go. I'll start with that for you. There you go.
And he has, an excellent tweet storm breaking down exactly, what it says, or he's basically putting it, out there in layman's terms, so you don't have to dig through the technical documents. But anyways, yeah. So the securities, the FCA rejects the SEC's fully decentralized tests for utility tokens. So we have several ways to test whether something is a security. One of them being the Howey test, and there's a couple other ones. And this ties a little bit back into that Japan story about the FSA in Japan running with their own regulations. So this is similar. The UK's FCA said, nope, US has its own laws, we have our own. So we're not going to use that test to determine what a utility token is, if it's a security.
Right. I think we touched on that last week a little bit, right? About how this is different because, you can't look to the U.S. to be the leader anymore, at least with this, because everybody has to deal with it at the same time. So it's not like, hey, Wall Street sits there and mulls it over and makes these regulations, and everybody else says, well, it works for Wall Street. Yeah, good enough. We'll either use that or some variation of it, right? And I think in this case, it's interesting because it's like they're basically saying, look, we're tired of waiting for that guidance, essentially. And here's how we would do it, guys. And here's the difference between a real utility token and a real security, and it's this fight of who gets to regulate it and why. And I used to think the SEC was this, hugely evil organization. But, the more I looked and read, it's like, it really seems like they were created for all the right reasons and probably still exist for the right reasons. But some of the things that come out of that legislation have opposite effect. Like, for instance, man, we really need to protect the little guy because finance is rife with fraud. Like it's just the way it is, right? It's been that way. So they said, man, wouldn't it be nice if some rich people were the good guys and we kind of looked out for everybody and protected, the wealth, after the Depression, everybody bought into the stock bubbles and, everybody lost their ass and said, okay, cool, great. So here's this new organization. And they say, well, how do we protect you? Well, what would really protect you is if you didn't invest money that you couldn't afford to lose. Okay, so what's that criteria? Ooh, okay. You got to make at least $250,000 a year, or you got to be worth $2 million. That's a good threshold. You could lose a little bit of money and you wouldn't miss it. But, on the other side of that is you've also now killed the ability for poor J-Rod to get in on something at the ground level because I don't have $2 million. You know what I mean? And so,
99% of the U.S. population just got eliminated, right?
More than that. I mean, you figure. I think the latest stats. Most people don't even have $400, in their account to cover an emergency, right? So yeah, you've eliminated that person instead of helping them. And so, the other side could be that's exactly the way it's designed. Maybe the rich people did that on purpose because they want to stay rich. I don't know, but. Point is, it seems like there are plenty of ways to look at that, and there are plenty of reasons for these various organizations to want that control and to want to usurp it and say, this is our thing, and here's what we're doing. Everybody has their own opinions about what a utility token is and what a security is. And I really like this interpretation. I think that's the way things should go. It should be a security is essentially an asset. If I take the Mona Lisa and I tokenize it, that's a security token. There's no utility there. I expect to get more money out of that when that painting gets sold. Or if I buy a condo that's tokenized. Yes, that's an investment. That's a security. You've taken an asset, you chopped it up, and you said, okay, boom. Or if I get voting rights of a company, instead of issuing shares of stock, you say, here's tokens that represent ownership in my company. Yes, I expect that to go up in value. That's why I bought it. I don't get to use it, can't wipe my ass with it. I put it in my wallet, and I wait for that value to rise. If I buy a Chuck E. Cheese token, I don't expect that to be worth any more. I expect to be able to use that token to put into a thing and play my crane game and get something for free. So I would hope that this thing gets looked at. Maybe that's a good move. Maybe the SEC doesn't care. But it's interesting news regardless. From what I understand, later on in those comments, they do say that this isn't like groundbreaking. I guess that's been their stance for a while. They've just finally kind of come out and codified it a little bit. But anyway, that's my 15 cents on that.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I'm just, like I said, it's disappointing to see the SEC not taking the lead on this. But like I said, maybe enough of this will get worked out overseas that it'll make the SEC jobs a little bit easier there.
If they even consider it. I mean, you got to figure, in general, do you think that they give a anything about what the rest of the world's doing? No, they think they know best, right? It's about protecting the American investors, not European investors or whatever. So,
right.
Anyway, I hope and pray that yes, maybe if they were like leaning on the fence and they see, you know, the brothers across the pond, you know, say, okay, this is the way we think. Like, well, hey, you know what? We were close to that anyway. Fine. That sounds reasonable. Let's go with that. You know, so who knows?
No, I hear you. All right. Well, anyway, so moving on. Here's a little bit of probably disappointing news for everybody. CPOE withdraws proposed rule change to list Bitcoin ETF. And I think Eric had found this. We've talked about this a little bit beforehand, but I think, you know, everybody is waiting for some action to take place that will drive the market up and bring institutional investors in. And this was a big one. I mean, this was like a for sure, right? This was going to happen, slam dunk, and you know what happened?
Yeah, you know, everybody's waiting at least 6 months. It was, what was it, back in July when the first one was rejected? I don't remember if that was
the second
the
rejection.
Winklevoss's rejection or CBOE's, but you know, it kept getting rejected and putting off and rejected, and so we knew that the last chance was going to be coming up. I believe it was in February, and the talk, you know, behind the scenes by people in the know was that, yeah, this was back last year in August, September. They said, well, it's going to play out all the way till February, and then it'll get approved. You know, it's typical. And here we are suddenly, but the government's shut down, and the SEC's, I guess, not doing work. So
thanks, Obama.
Yeah, that played into all of this, apparently. And so instead of being rejected by the SEC, they are polling it.
Yeah. Well, so does that mean that when they put it back in, the clock starts again? Because you can see this was July of 2018 that it was submitted, and we knew that there was going to be a number of sort of rubber stamp rejections, right? To buy more, that essentially buys more time for the decision. So does that mean we went from July to December, so from month 7? So does that mean if they resubmit when the government reopens up, we're looking at least another 5 more months of evaluation?
You know, that's a good question, and I don't have the answer to that yet. But I would think that if you were resubmitting the same thing, that the clock would start where you left off and not restart from the very beginning. If you were submitting something else, then it would start from the very beginning. But again, I don't work in government or for the SEC, so I can't say.
Yeah. Well, so what else? So what else is on the table? Is in terms of ETFs or I guess other ETFs that up there to come through? Are we waiting on any other major triggers?
I don't think so. I think the Winklevosses pulled theirs completely last year. The only other thing that I've been, following kind of on this front, other than this ETF, of course, it is backed, and then Nasdaq's exchange and backed has been put on hold, obviously, because of the shutdown as well,
right.
or at least that's what they say. They just issued a hiring notice for engineers and stuff, and people are saying, well, if you got everything ready to go, then why would you be hiring people? But anyways, no, that I wasn't aware of any other ETFs. This one, and then backed and Nasdaq Gemini.
I guess the other part is that we didn't see the market dump when this news came up either, right? So
well, not yet. I mean, maybe that's finally numb to it, which would be great. I'm tired of seeing shit dump when this news comes out.
Right.
But I think backed is a bigger deal, to be honest. I think,
absolutely.
I think that's a bigger thing for me. And we're talking about, physical settlement, and I really don't know I wish I had my brother on here. We could talk about the intricacies between an ETF and what backed, because what backed is offering is really a different product. But I can't tell you why an ETF would be more or less important than backed. I just think that what backed is doing is still a pretty big deal, and it still seems like it's going to happen. So, I mean,
yeah, and there's already an ETF in Europe,
right?
So and that didn't send the market to the moon. So yeah, for sure, backed is a whole different animal.
Okay. All right. Oh, this is one that you found. Well, this is exciting, right? Venezuela has been in trouble for a long
Oh
time.
yeah.
We're looking at. We spoke a couple episodes back about KFC accepting crypto. I noted that the equivalent of their Walmart is accepting cryptocurrency. And Eric, you just found this article uh, that says, "Hey, cryptocurrency is becoming the reserve."
Yeah, so that was courtesy of Jill Carson on Twitter. I always like to point out people who I got this news from. Yeah, so this guy did a live stream, and I guess one of the components of it was that local Bitcoins down in Venezuela is seeing record volume in transactions. And of course, with the coup underway, if you want to call it a coup, I'm not sure, the people overthrowing Maduro, who's a real bastard. I don't know. Coup has a negative connotation, but
Right.
anyway, so with that happening, and the bolivar being affected, essentially worthless, that Bitcoin, like right there, is, as it says, is effectively becoming the reserve currency. And while that's an awesome thing to be happening, it just sucks that it's happening under these shitty conditions down there. But yeah, safe haven for your money. It's an interesting test case,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Well,
Well, and it's not just Bitcoin, right? I mean, there's maybe is there
No,
basically a competition to see what's going to be the dominant coin?
no, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, of course, other people, use Litecoin and other cryptos, but Bitcoin is that, I mean, everybody understands that Bitcoin is the safest coin to be in, and so I think that's where, people are putting their money. I could be wrong. They could be using Ripple. I don't think so.
I'm trying to remember. There was a coin that was being used. Of course I can't remember which one it is now, but it was a big deal. They were sending it. For food relief, essentially. God, what was it? It was in the news months ago, and it kind of went viral for a minute. It was one of the lower known coins. I guess I shouldn't have mentioned it if I can't remember the name of the coin, but I thought it was kind of,
Verge,
what's that?
Verge, XVG.
No, I don't know. I
No.
don't think it was Verge. I mean, fuck, who knows?
Oh, was it Dash or Decred? One of those two.
I think KFC's using DAFs. KFC's to confirm.
I want to say it was like Neo maybe or something like. I mean, I forget. But anyway, it was interesting to see like they were like, hey, whatever, and it was like a big deal. Like, hey, man, it was so much easier to go buy all this food with this crypto that you sent for almost nothing, compared to what would be involved in trying to use traditional methods to send money. And I think about it, like my friends and I always joke, like we have a long running joke with my friends that use Apple phones, and we were trying to transfer money the one time. Well, he goes, well, I can send you the money. I'm like, well, I only accept Bitcoin. And he goes, well, I've got Venmo and I've got Apple Pay. I'm like, no Apple Pay. And he listed these 3 different ways he could send money, which I have none of them. But essentially those work, and I don't know what the fees are for them, but it's essentially digital money. It's the centralization part that people really have to grasp. That owning a private wallet and sending that money private person to person, the peer-to-peer nature of it is what makes it attractive, as opposed to the ability to send digital value across the internet. Like that's not a new thing,
Yeah, because Maduro could reach out to Apple and say, hey, these guys,
sure,
you need to stop, and centralized energy. They will.
Yeah. No,
but
good.
again, going back, I think that people, I mean, Bitcoin is the standard globally. I don't think people are going to be putting their money into a shit coin, as a safe haven.
Yeah. Well, store value, right? Store
Yes.
value. No, that's like I said. It'll be interesting to see how this develops over the coming months.
Yeah. Hopefully, it's a quick transition. Bloodless, and yeah, they come through on the other side.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to bring up this article. Pennsylvania clarifies that crypto exchanges are not money transmitters. And I guess my rudimentary understanding of this is that it's essentially saying you can set up an exchange and you don't have to go through the same criteria you would if you wanted to set up a bank, right? A bank would be a much more stringent process. And it just, what the thought that came to mind is that, here's another state that's maybe competing with
Yeah.
Wyoming, right?
Miami.
We do a ton of business in Wyoming with when we set up our LLCs, it's all Wyoming based.
Yeah, we don't
Because
have
they're
that. We don't
friendly.
have that Wyoming nose in there, do we? The one where they've stated that Bitcoin is actual money, right? Didn't they just come out with some legislation they're putting in? I think I saw Caitlin Long was posting a bunch of stuff. I didn't read it. But
Yeah, she's been on top of everything going on out there, and this is great news because the states are going to start competing with each other. They're going to be racing to see who can be the friendliest to crypto,
Mhm.
and Nevada's running a little bit behind Wyoming, but Nevada's running.
Ohio's trying, but I mean, what are you going to do? It's like, hey, you can pay your taxes in Bitcoin. Like, okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Well, and read this quote, right? The user of a kiosk merely exchange a fiat currency for a virtual currency and vice versa. There's no money transmission, right? So you can set up on ramps and off ramps in the state of Pennsylvania and not have to go through the same scrutiny as
And how does that affect local Bitcoins? Can you do local Bitcoins there?
Oh, that's a very interesting
I
point.
mean, because that's the whole point of that being taken down was because it was a money transfer, illegal money transfer service. Now, is that a federal thing? I mean, I'm guessing not. It looks like it's a state thing here.
Yeah, this
So-
is a state thing, right?
But I don't know if there's any federal override, is what I'm saying. I don't know if the feds could come in and go, no, you're still transacting in dollars for Bitcoin, and we own dollars, so screw your
Yeah, the
states.
feds, they
You
always
know?
want their pound of flesh. So
Yeah, so
I don't.
we'll have to look into
I mean,
that.
yeah, I don't think you can really do. Yeah, I mean, look, the feds can always step in, right? What we can do about that? But look, here's
That's a whole other
looking
topic.
here's what you're just right. It's gonna be no list. It's gonna be no different than here, right?
yeah, and I wonder if so. This is a little bit different than what we were talking about earlier, rules and regulations. If this might be a little bit different because we're here in the States. I mean, Nevada, and say they did it. Let's copy what they did, and implement it in our state.
This is what you're talking about. Here's all the tweets by Caitlin Long. Right, but this is it. The bill, like I said, the bill will provide a precise classification of digital assets, especially for custody administration.
Yep.
No, like I said, this is great news.
Yeah, I think isn't Caitlin a Wyoming resident? She's always been on top of everything coming out of Wyoming. That's kind of
Yeah,
been
she
a
was
big thing.
she was holding her feet, the feet to the fire for Backed. When originally when she kind of ignited a firestorm when she was saying, look, this, the term rehypothecation, and brought that to the forefront that, make sure this thing isn't really just playing the same old tricks. And sure enough, they came out and notion of creating paper Bitcoin through the rehypothecation. We won't know really for sure until it comes out, but there are still ways to play games with mixing accounts and with commingling of funds and all of that stuff. Again, they're good at that game. That's one of the reasons why they really don't know how much is in all these funds and debt pools is because the books are all kind of overlapped. They're not clean. It's like, oh, some of these assets get listed in multiple books, because of this rehypothecation nonsense. So
Yeah,
anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
yeah.
Like CDOs.
CDOs, yeah, we have no idea. You see that number? I don't know, 500 trillion. I don't know. It could be anything.
Yeah, that's insane.
Right, but so I mean, if you look at this, or you look at what they said, they're basically trying to set up a bill that will allow banks, Wyoming banks, right, to become custodians of digital assets, right? So they'll be able to store Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the
I
thing.
know that I've seen some stories recently within the past week that said some congressmen, U.S. congressmen up in D.C. have actually introduced some bills that contain language regarding crypto. So DC is, they're doing stuff there as well, and I'll see if I can find information on that for next week's show.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, man. That's what I got. We've just hit all the articles and a couple of extra ones.
Nice. Okay.
We ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, sounds good. That was pretty good talk.
Good.
I like it. Hopefully we can get the rest of the guys back in. It's nice to hear everybody's voices, and we all have different opinions on stuff. And I want to make sure I'm not talking too much. So,
real quick, George in the chat is saying for Latin country payments, Bitcoin is not the best option. One still have to wait 30 minutes for transreference. They need it for quick daily trade.
Yeah, well, I've always been the opinion that that's not Bitcoin. It's not with 10-minute transactions confirmations. It's just not really the best for doing those person-to-person quick transactions. You're going to have to use one of the faster ones, whether that's Litecoin or Dash or Tron or whichever one happens to be the one that both parties agree to. But and I guess that's changing. We've got the Lightning Network, right? I mean, there's eventually that's going to change, but not everybody has support for that. It's not really super ubiquitous yet. So
yeah, somebody needs a good Lightning iOS.
Oh yeah, yeah, for real.
I know there's a couple groups working on them, but yeah,
I think
Lightning will solve that.
Yeah, right, and that's cool. And there's the Liquid for the big boys too. So I think that over time we'll see that change, and that's probably why a lot of people say that they don't believe Litecoin's going to be the silver to Bitcoin gold, right? Because you don't need it. You can use these other side chain solutions. So anyway, cool.
Yep. Well, look, we want to hear everybody's feedback. So if you've got it, please share it with us. If you've got ideas on on topics that you want us to to pursue and talk about, let us know.
Word. All right, fellas. It was good talking to you. Until next week.
Yep.
We'll see you.